Life Well Dunn Podcast, optimizing physical, mental, and emotional being. Challenge plus change equals growth.
Welcome back.
All right.
We
Welcome
are
back, folks.
back to the newly branded
Life
Well Done, optimizing physical, mental, and emotional being. Challenge plus change equals growth.
That's true. That's
There
true.
we go.
Yeah, we'll get it. It'll flow.
Yeah, we're still working on a few
A
things.
little rusty.
Working the kinks out here.
But it's all good. Yeah, we're back.
How's
And
everything going?
It's okay. I had to take like a week and a half off of training.
You looked pretty drained there for a little bit.
Dude, what was it? Last week? Came off the weekend or went into the weekend, and my biceps femoris and my hamstring started acting up. So it was really tight, and I was like, I'll just kind of take it easy. And then Monday came around, and I just was off. Like, body felt off, felt drained. And so, you know what? I'm actually like several weeks ahead in my training program for the ultras this year. So I figured, like, well, no better time than now to go ahead and just pull back, take a week, get a little upper body strength and mobility in that I haven't done for a while.
Dude, your injuries aren't going to get better by pushing through.
Exactly.
Like that, logically, what choice do you really have?
I mean, from what I understand, like most runners in their race season are going to go through some sort of overuse injury. Right. They'll have something, and I've kind of been lucky. Today I went out and tested it, did 5 mile tempo, like 8 minute mile pace, got the cardiovascular back up, and everything seems okay right now.
Yeah.
But
check it later.
But yeah, it's well, we'll get into the
we'll get into it. Yeah. Today I think is going to be pretty saucy. Yeah. I'm excited about this one. So
also, how about you've been well?
Man, things are going pretty well. I know for me there's quite a bit coming up, and life can be stressful, but everything's good. It's good opportunities ahead. It's just making decisions potentially here. So we'll see what happens. But man, everything has been on the up and up, and feeling probably the best I've felt in a long time.
So we get to
should we segue there?
Yeah, we got to talk about why.
All
we're
right.
feeling good.
So I don't think we really know how we're gonna do this. We're just gonna roll with it. So you, funny, you had texted me whatever morning it was, and you're like, "Hey man, hope everything's well, but you got to check out this Joe Rogan podcast."
Yeah.
And I texted you back and I said, "No, exactly the one." I saved it because I saw his reactions on his Instagram feed, and I was like, for him to throw himself out like that, you just kind of were like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
So definitely, you'd listen to it. I'd listen to it. I don't remember the doctor's name on it.
So it's Dr. Matthew Walker.
There it is. Cool. Yeah. And he's a neuroscientist by trade, sleep specialist, going into your specialty. And this thing was mind blowing.
I'm going to listen to it at least
46 more times.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing.
I mean, from the beginning of the podcast, it was like I had paused and wow.
Well, he leads off within like the first, I don't want to exaggerate, but within the first couple of minutes at the very least, he leads off with, sleep is the best legal performance enhancing drug that we know. And just right there, you're like,
okay.
Yeah, I knew sleep was really important, but for someone that studies it to say that and to be on that kind of platform is incredible.
Yeah. Well, and
ears perked up.
On top of that, I think it was actually validating to listen to the statistics, the physiology behind what sleep does, because I can tell you, hey, if I don't get good sleep, I don't necessarily know what that sleep is. I've always just said I need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And unfortunately, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I only need 6 hours of sleep. Which
he goes, if we had to round it to a whole number of people that can function on less than 6 hours of sleep, he goes, it'd be zero.
Debunked. I mean, completely debunked.
That's what the percentages is rounded to. A whole number of zero.
Zero. Yeah.
Incredible.
And so it was validating, because I can tell you that, and I don't know if that's what the product was of last week. It was just like not quite getting the sleep that I needed to get.
Crazy.
And he was throwing out percentages like 40% increased risk of injury with less than 7 hours of sleep. CO2, so basically oxygen diffusion or gas exchange in your lungs drops precipitously. So like everything that I'm doing, running every single day, gas exchange, like proper metabolism.
There was so much that was said that it felt like logic, but then when you put the statistics behind it, I was like, holy shit.
Well, I mean,
and like the CO2 stuff made sense. I started thinking about it further, and I'm thinking about, God, I don't want to mess this up. Brain stem, thalamus. I think it's. I'm not even gonna go there. But the part of it, there's CO2 receptors in the brain stem too that work back and forth with that. And when he said that, I was like, well, duh. There's the nervous system.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Yeah.
I was like,
exactly.
Even if I didn't know that it was directly to the lungs, I don't know that still. That's something I really want to get look deeper into. But like the whole system was mind blowing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you talk. I think the ones in the brain or by the carotid, are those the chemoreceptors?
Oh, I should know this.
Right.
Yeah. Nevertheless, it was just mind blowing, and we're not even going to go down the rabbit hole. I don't think of Alzheimer's, and like brain disease, and how sleep affects that. That was staggering. That could be a whole episode by itself.
Well, even just the statistics, like a validation statistic, that we talk about illness, we talk about men. Well, men and women, but listen, men. If you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep on average, like as your average, so 6.5 hours of sleep, 6.75 hours of sleep, like whatever that is, that your testosterone levels typically are terrible. That of someone a decade older than you.
I couldn't believe that.
And not 10 years old to 20 years old, or not. We're not talking about some young buck that's got the testosterone of like a 25-year-old. Right. Like no, we're talking like 40. Now you've got testosterone of a 50-year-old. I mean, so that's aging. Huge. It's essentially aging you faster. Literally all cause mortality, which means that if you're not getting good sleep, you die from everything else and just quicker.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Definitely listening to it multiple more times.
As we've just now butchered the entire podcast.
Right.
I
but like definitely check out Joe Rogan. Yeah. That may have been one of my favorite ones because it's not talking over your head. No. The information could be, but the punchline is that you need to figure your fucking sleep out.
So yes,
and
which
so
sort of
we'll segue into a little bit more. So Life Well Dunn, the household, the Dunn Welline household here.
The Welline, Dunn, Welline, Goldlex, and Olson household.
Boom.
Yeah.
Bear Kovu household.
Oh yeah, and then
I probably will go in. This sounds like a cop out.
It's okay,
but we're gonna go for a sober May, and I have a caveat on it. We'll go into this whole thing,
sure,
but that's our whole goal.
Sober May.
So, Nate, obviously you have been sober for several months now.
Yeah, we'll just say, collectively since being in Colorado. I've been sober since being in Colorado.
Several months, right? Which is awesome. And you've actually, maybe we'll get to this point, but you actually kind of inspired me to clean my shit up too. I'm not going to go on that rabbit hole yet. Maybe we'll get there.
That's cool.
But so it's a little bit of a support system. For the last 3 weeks, I've changed my diet to more of a carnivore. I'm trying something new. I wouldn't say I'm strictly carnivore, but I'm probably more carnivore than I am keto. I feel much better than I did on keto. And what I've consisted of eating is red meat, some other meat, eggs, butter, bacon.
Animal protein.
Yes. Flesh builds flesh. And I have not had any vegetables. Except I'm going to lie about that. The other day, my buddies were in town, and I had chicken wings and a salad.
All right, well.
So that was the extent of my vegetable intake in the last 3 weeks. And I have 100% never felt better. My sleep has been terrible because I've just been keeping an obnoxious schedule. And through that, I have still felt
better. When
I do sleep, I'm dead. And when I'm awake, I am alive. My hamstring, that tear.
Yeah.
Medically, I don't know it was foreshore torn, but there was a knot in there, and I had significant bruising there. In 3 weeks, it has healed faster than when my pulls have in the last couple of years. And this is to the point where I'm already sumo deadlifting. I'm doing heavy sumo deadlifting 315 for multiple reps, like 5 to 10 reps, and like no pain. Just incredible.
And this is obviously all anecdotal.
Right. For me,
it's experience. It's an
right.
Experience.
And there's plenty of research out there that supports carnivore diet. There's no doubt. They've been doing this in the Middle East for years and decades. But there's so much anecdotal, and it was like one of those things of, you're gonna tell me that for 30 days you're gonna not eat away because you're like, oh, cholesterol, oh, fat, protein, too much of this crap. Well, here's the thing: for 28 years I've eaten like an asshole. So 30 days of my life probably wasn't gonna be too bad. And I can honestly tell you that I've never felt this good. There's been moments of like where my anxiety, opportunities for my anxiety to just ramp up, and though I still have it, it is so much more manageable. I am down about 19 or 20 pounds. Granted, most of it's water weight.
You look good.
But thank you.
Yeah.
My work capacity. So the one thing when I went on keto, my thing was, and I could have been under calories. I didn't measure a ton of stuff. But the one thing that always happened on keto was I felt like my work capacity just shot down. Yeah. I had no energy to sprint, to run, to bike, to row. I had 3 reps to 5 reps in me. I couldn't do anything more. On this, I mean, maybe it's a little bit more mental clarity, but I actually am enjoying cardio, and I cannot believe I'm saying that.
Wow.
But it's awesome that I'm able to work on my work capacity. I have never felt this good in such a short period of time. I should put that caveat on it. So for me, like, it's also very sustainable. And one of the reasons for me that I wanted to go on this, and this is going to go into that sober May.
Sure.
One of the reasons that I wanted to go on it was because I do have a weird relationship with food. Everybody says they're an emotional eater. Okay. I definitely have a relationship with food and smoking weed that go hand in hand. And last night was the first time I cheated in about 3 weeks with food. And I told you guys this morning in the kitchen, I said, it was so weird to be eating what I was eating and not be stoned. And it was actually uncomfortable. And there's been plenty of moments where I've gone through some, cravings have been pretty mild too.
Interesting.
And, I've leaned on a couple people when I'm super out of my mind trying to eat everything in sight, but it's been very manageable. Last night was kind of an eye opener of, okay, I broke that cycle at least once.
So just quickly, do you think that like weed sort of lowers the inhibition or the threshold to have sort of the logical responsibility, or is it because it friggin' like just says
there's no off switch?
Okay.
Having said that, there's generally not an off switch when I eat. I'm kind of hollow-legged, but it's crap food. Yeah. And that comes back into that sleep stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I don't remember what the stat was, but when you get less than 7 hours of sleep, you make terrible food choices.
Well,
yeah, experience talking.
Well, okay,
right
so
there.
I'm a night shifter by trade. I haven't done it for, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
I worked nursing shifts, day and night, off 3 months, 3 months on, 3 months off, and you just, it's again anecdotal, but there's insulin regulation, your melatonin drops it peaks at night. There's a whole hormone modulation that happens when you sleep, and you reach for shit food, and mainly because unfortunately, and he didn't touch on this in the podcast, but unfortunately, that's kind of what's available.
Right. Oh yeah.
And
well, not a lot of people are cooking steaks at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And of course, there's the satiety hormone, lectin. Yeah. And then there's
ghrelin.
Is it ghrelin?
Ghrelin.
Ghrelin. Okay.
Yeah,
is
ghrelin.
the
I don't know if there's a G on the end of it.
Eat food. And when you don't sleep, that hormone to drive you to eat is produced more, because they think evolutionarily, if you were up, it was because there wasn't food and you were searching for food. So it's biology basically saying, all right, well, if we're up when we should be sleeping, then we should be looking for food.
So wild.
And so that hormone, but it makes sense. Yeah. Like it's
written on the wall.
That entire podcast is like
it's logic being explained in science.
It's literally like evolution in a podcast. Yeah. And if you listen to that, and there's no way that you won't be able to agree to most of the things that this guy talks about.
It's fantastic.
And then if you deny evolution, I'm like, I don't know what. Anyway, let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? So you're feeling amazing,
dude. I feel fantastic. And for the last 3 weeks, I've managed it really well. A couple of times I've been really struggling with food cravings. I've even, like for me, a lot of times when I go out to eat with friends or something like that, I'd be like, well, I don't want to look dumb.
And you were feeling guilty.
Hell yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. And that was the other thing. And that's the reason I cheated. That's not the reason I cheated. I allowed myself to, what did you call it? You said you don't use the word cheat.
Oh, I call it soul food.
Soul food. Okay. So I chose to take
real soul food lovers. I
we're fake soul food.
Yeah.
fast food, soul food.
Sure.
But it wasn't even fast food. But I decided to have that conversation. I mulled over it all day long. I mean, like I had some anxiety about it. I was like, what am I really doing? And I decided it was okay because it was an opportunity to reestablish a new relationship. I went 3 weeks and I really proved something to myself that if I really needed to go another month, I know I could. I've manipulated situations of going out, double and triple stack cheeseburgers with bacon on them minus bun and veggies, chicken wings plain. Now, is it the greatest idea? No, but I'm making do with it. Sure. Have I had Diet Cokes? Yes, that's been one of my ways of kind of manipulating the situation. System, yeah. Have I been perfect with it? Not at all. But last night I decided, okay, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to get back on track tomorrow. And I'm going to understand this. And I've said this kind of for the last couple of weeks now of I think what I'll go to is more of that anabolic keto where on the weekends you refeed strategically. Yeah. And just that way I can keep my sanity. But a lot of that comes with discipline. It's very easy for me, and I think most people, to go off the deep end. And
I'm
like
all or nothing.
That's exactly who I am.
I am.
You know, like if I can't make the perfect meal, I'm going to Taco Bell. And on the way home, I'm stopping to get some ice cream. And then I'm going to eat it all right there. Like that nonstop can't. And that's where the weed comes in. I associate a lot of my eating, specifically at night, with marijuana. And so for me, it's breaking that cycle. So I allowed myself to cheat, have my soul food, as we're calling it.
Someone's gonna
and just move on with it. Yeah. And understand that there's a relationship there. It's okay to have what you want, but as long as I don't make it into a habit of every single day. And so in this last 3 weeks as well, I haven't had a sip of alcohol, and I have not smoked at all. And Rogan talks about this a lot, where like Terrence McKenna, old psychedelic guy who recently passed.
Yeah, the father of psychedelics.
Yeah, he used to tell people marijuana is just like a psychedelic. It should be used in moderation. So if you go long periods of time without it, and then he says you should consume as much as possible to take yourself on a trip. Yeah. Maybe we'll try it out one time. But it's also understanding that, like, you and I have talked about reward systems, but understanding that I'm doing this because I want to right now. And then when that moment's over or that experience is over, I'm back onto something. And that's the coolest thing for me about this particular diet. It's not that it's the most right way of eating. I can tell you it's more right than certain ways, but I will not go down that rabbit hole. We don't need hate mail. But that'll be a show for hopefully when we get somebody else on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really, for me, was my goal was not only to get my body composition together and experiment with a new diet and see what I could do, but it was to establish a new relationship. And for me, I think that coming back to this diet is actually very sustainable to me. I look forward to having a big ass juicy burger with a little bit of cheese in the middle of it and some bacon on the side. I could eat that for breakfast. And it's just no bun, no vegetables, anything like that. It's satiating, and I feel fucking great. And I'm not going to really argue that. Yeah. Right. Now, like, people say, what about your blood panels? Again, not going down that rabbit hole, but just challenge things in life. And I think that's always kind of how I live my life, is like I don't just follow what's going on. I want to experiment. And now I'm kind of getting that discipline of, like, try it yourself. Yeah. Try it yourself so that way you can have that your own experience to give off. And so for me, it was really more about developing a mental balance for myself between mainly food and weed. And alcohol is never, I mean, at one point it was a short period of time in my life it was an issue, but I don't reach for alcohol. It just happens that okay, fine. Yeah. So going forward with Sober May, I acknowledge that for 3 weeks now I've been, and it'll be 3+ weeks when I go home next week, that I will not have had alcohol or marijuana of any way, in any shape or form. I also know that this month I have a lot of visitors, or Cinco de Mayo, where I'm going to go with my buddies. And so what I'm taking on as sober is going to be a challenge for me, and I'm going to make a change to see how much I can grow. To see if I can really establish a new relationship with all these things. Food and marijuana do not need to be associated, and I need to understand some of my tics that make me reach for shit food. Yeah. Is it sleep? Is it emotional? Is it convenience? And understanding that on the other side of some of those stressors is you still feeling really fucking good and hitting your goals without having to worry about it. So instead of feeling guilty about soul food days, accept them and when they're over, move forward with them. And same thing with weed and booze. Okay, I'm probably going to have a couple beers here and there.
Sure.
And again, alcohol is not the issue. It's more of a challenge with weed. I know that I'm going to smoke. I want to smoke.
Yeah.
But I want to use it in a way that I get to enjoy the experience. When it's over, I'm over with it.
It's almost like you're just becoming more cognizant
Yes.
of behaviors associated with it.
Yes.
Where you're saying they're not what is it, mutually exclusive? They're not well, they are. So you're separating the two. They don't go together, and for the longest time they have gone together.
Last night was an incredibly weird experience. I'm sitting there watching
yeah.
hockey, eating, and I'm like, I'm missing something. I was like, dude, you're not
And
stoned.
I'm sure if you were stoned and you weren't eating, it would be equally. I mean, I'm sure you've been stoned and under the influence of marijuana and not eaten.
It's
However,
tough,
at night, like that specific spot on your bed watching hockey, but you're high, but you're not eating, would probably be equally as weird.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And it would be a really difficult thing for me not to eat.
Yeah.
I would definitely be like, I got to go to ice cream or something.
Yeah.
And part of this was also spurred by you. We had a conversation. I think we may have actually talked about this on the podcast recently. You and I had a conversation. I was like, does me smoking in the house create a stressor for you? Because that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
We definitely talked about this because
Yeah, we did.
like how I view it is not the same. But then we had this really deep conversation long story short, I took away as getting super sober like that is my opportunity to learn more about myself and to really understand myself. And so getting that clear-headed, now that I've seen quite a few of my tics, and in 3 weeks long enough, I don't know, maybe I have to go 2 months. I'll find out this month probably. But there were experiences in the last 3 weeks where I had some cravings and I almost broke. And like I text Preston quite a bit. Yeah. I'm like, he's like, just maybe this is your hurdle. And he got me over it. Like he helped me get over it. And it was just things like that. Like every time you chip away at that big block, you're making progress. You're growing.
Absolutely.
And so for me, like now it's more of a, maybe I'm being soft a little bit here mentally as far as like not partaking in total sober May. But I also know that my goal isn't to smoke all of May and drink all of May. It's going to be like a couple times.
Sure.
And that's going to introduce that challenge of, can you create balance?
Your balances, right. Exactly. Now, right. I think people might ask and beg the question, well, what the guy that doesn't smoke or
right.
drink, like what the hell is sober May supposed to be for? But I did talk about this, I think it was back in January, that I do partake in recreational chewing tobacco. It's not recreational. Yeah. So Sarah hates it, obviously. And it is gross. It's something I picked up in the military, and anyway.
It's such a gross habit, dude. I used to chew a ton at the end of my senior year, and like lied to my parents about. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
They find the tin, and they're you chew just once in a while. And like it's funny because my buddy Kevin was out here, and he was like, "You want to try some snus?" And I was like, "Dude, actually, I've been craving chew recently, but I just." Yeah. The second I sniff it, I'm like, I'm gonna vomit.
Yeah. Well, so it was funny because I sort of like proposed sober May to Sarah and then our new roommate, and just said like, let's do it. And it was sort of a joke because I don't drink or smoke, right. So it was like, haha. And then Sarah was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like, okay. And it really what this stemmed from, and I'll just to kind of give some background here, is I had listened to this podcast, the sleep podcast with Dr. Matthew Walker.
That's right. Yeah.
And the first thing, of course, Joe Rogan would ask this question about weed association and alcohol use and sleep. And they said that they're finding that pot moves people past the first REM sleep into the deep sleep. But what happens is our body is evolutionarily designed to have all the REM sleep that we need within a 7 to 9 hour period. So it actually isn't that beneficial because you're missing that portion of the sleep cycle. Like what he said is, this is 1 point some million years of evolution. Like we have this for a specific reason. Like
how do you put it? He's like Mother Nature.
Yeah.
That was, I thought, not the sidetrack here.
No, yeah.
I thought the use of the words Mother Nature instead of just evolution.
Yeah.
Mother Nature, everybody kind of, I feel is like, oh,
yeah.
fucking Mother Nature.
It really is like it's a perfect design. It's there for a reason. Yeah. Whether it's flawed because we would like to have less, like just the fact is we need this much sleep. Right. All-cause mortality goes up. It means we die quicker if we don't have a certain amount of sleep. So I started thinking about this because I've used alcohol, primarily alcohol because that was what I could use in the military, as something I would have when I go home after work. And I've consequently cut cut that out, and I don't partake of cannabis. But I do have this one thing, and it was really funny because I was like, this is gonna be funny, and then it like dawned on me, like, oh, well, shit, I gotta give that chewing tobacco up, and which is actually fine because I've been looking for a really good excuse to do just this, and I really don't use it. It's like it's kind of a trigger thing, and I remember someone told me, they were like, well, I get it because it's kind of like your thing. Like you don't do anything else.
Everybody has a vice.
As a vice.
Thing, yeah.
And I'm like, I get it as a vice, but there's, I've gone off of it before. And it just consequently, I was with somebody in San Diego for a medical conference, and he does. And I just got it. Like, sure, man. Like, we're just being social.
There is nothing. Boom. I remember, like, after hockey practice, even before, but mostly after hockey practice, it was sometimes like, this is actually, I can't even believe that I'm saying this, in high school, senior year, end of senior year, where like, in the middle of practice, I'm like, oh my God, dude, I just want to get off the ice and just throw chaw in and enjoy myself. And it was actually a dentist from a different team that came in, and like, of course, everybody in the locker room's chewing, but of course, he stares right into my soul from across the room, and he's like, you boys chewing? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'm a dentist who just removed a jaw earlier this week from a guy that chewed. And I was like, I'm like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
Finger in the bottom lip, chuck it into the garbage. And it's like,
yeah,
okay. And use sunflower seeds to really quit.
Exactly. So gum will be mine.
Yeah.
Nicotine is one of the, and I've come off, like if anyone wants to go back and listen to the second podcast, I've come off narcotics,
which is,
only
a small feat there, Nate.
And not like some pills.
No,
like heavy duty narcotics.
Yeah.
Not even heroin, like worse than heroin. Just to be
what
clear.
they put in heroin,
exactly.
to make heroin fun.
Yeah, no problem. Like legitimately, I think I was just so happy to be done with it that it was
like
really
a weight
no
off your
problem.
shoulder almost.
Yep. Alcohol was, it just was what it was. I think there was more social issues with alcohol, like just being around people drinking. It wasn't like, oh God, I have to have a drink. It was just, like, I'm just not gonna have a beer when I'm grilling. Right. And it was more of a bummer than it was like a need to have it.
That's exactly what it is. It's a bummer. It's a great way to describe it.
Today, I don't have that at all. Like I'm fine going anywhere that people are drinking alcohol because I know I got to get up and run in the morning, and I just feel 100% better without it. And I'm not knocking like glass of wine or whatever, but I'm just not a moderation guy. And that was my problem.
That's really what the caveat in all of it is. Like, and for me, even like, weed used to be something I had a lot of control over, and then recently I started having like anxiety attacks, not super severe, but like anxiety attacks while I'm high. And it was like, I needed a reason to do it. And it was like, you know what? Clean it all up at once, go through the brick wall, see what you're fucking made of for a chance, follow through on something, because then I just truly believe that people that kind of when they manage really well anything that they can consume orally. There's no good way of putting that out there, all you sickos listening. But anything that you can consume orally, I think that people that can manage that look at the rest of their life and say, I can do anything.
Sure.
Because there's so many variables, physical, mental, emotional, things that go into managing that.
Yeah.
There's triggers everywhere.
Yeah, there really are. And
I just look at people, like most people that do that stuff, where they make like people that really change their lives in terms of weight loss and performance, stuff like that. You can just feel how severe of a change that was for them, and they're like, I can do anything in the world.
Sure, yeah,
anything in the world.
Getting off of any vice, I think, is just the most liberating thing on planet Earth. It has to be. And so I decided, like, okay, we're gonna go for it. I think for some of these people, in the house, like, it's really not going to be a big deal, but I think it was this all-encompassing.
I'm worried about Kovu and Bear.
They no more bones, but they, or rather, I'm curious now. So I've made some decisions for this month. My training schedule is super intense. It's like I said, 5 days a week of running, and I'm now saying, or I'm now keeping a sleep journal as well. Because he said diet's really not that important so long as I'm getting the calories I'm burning. Like today, I've already burned 2,000 calories, so I need to like put in 4,000 calories at a minimum. So, but if I do not get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, my training's done for the day.
Right.
Like I don't train. I'll do ROMWOD, stretch, yoga.
Yeah, you can still stay active and mobile.
Yeah. But I will not run unless potentially if it's one of the like 4-mile runs that they're like really slow and I'll keep it easy.
Recovery.
But no, recovery. But no long distance. Nothing under.
Not setting PRs.
Really,
and shit.
yeah, nothing 8. Like I will not run anything over 8 miles. I won't touch it.
I think it's a fantastic idea too.
Just because of everything you talked about with injury. So the other thing with the nicotine is that it's a vice. However, it's like, okay, well, what is this really going to? Because it's not affecting my sleep. I'm not I don't chew right before bed, and I don't like it's fairly like specific places that I do this. It's not just all day every day. So I'm like, okay, listen, good sleep coupled with that, the one thing that you do that is bad, maybe cut down on some caffeine. I could possibly do that.
Well, you might see that as a result of your sleep.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I want to see how my body feels.
It kind of feels like you and I are, sorry to cut you up. It kind of feels like you and I are going at Sober May in a similar way of trying to find some new triggers and take more responsibility of our overall health.
Yeah.
And at some point, I think it's mostly mental.
It really is.
It presents itself as physical.
I think that the cravings for nicotine, to be honest with you, are worse. I don't want to say worse. If you've never had a craving, it's kind of hard to explain. Like I don't get headaches and like the flu and shit, but it's like, and you probably know exactly what it is.
It's an emotional attachment.
It's just like God, like I really want one of those.
Exactly.
And
what it is.
I've never had that with any drug or alcohol.
You do have it with nicotine, though.
Nicotine, 100%.
Really?
Way more than any other thing.
See, I would have thought nicotine would present more as the physical issue, the headaches and stuff like that. Interesting.
No. Caffeine does.
I
do know caffeine does.
I absolutely understand where I feel like it's an emotional attachment.
It is that emotional
things.
thing. Like I'm driving, and I'm like, or after work, or I mean, there's just specific spots.
That's crazy.
We're like working in the garage on something. It's just like a
habitual thing. Met with emotional.
So Sober May could be like, I don't know.
Be all like,
I mean, I've given up chewing tobacco before, like literally cold turkey. Just like I don't want this anymore. But I had
other voices. I had
alcohol, right? Mm-hmm. So, but actually, the triggers for chewing tobacco were elevated on that first and second beer.
Interesting.
Where you're like, I want a dip.
So do you think that maybe right now you're kind of presenting the future, the month of May being the future here, you're making this up more because you're worried because you don't have the other triggers?
I don't know. I think because honestly, when I presented Sober May, I wasn't even thinking about chewing tobacco.
Right.
It just happens to be the one that I'm giving up. And I typically I'm not worried about giving it up and not having anything. I'm not worried about like some void or something like that. I think, in fact, it's just going to be really good. I'm a little nervous about because I don't have anything else. I've never done that before, giving it up without anything else. So I'm not worried about, because the easiest thing to do is just not go into a gas. Like the only reason I go inside of a gas station is to get that.
Yeah.
So I just have to not go this certain way home and just go the other way. And I'm not going to stop and pick it up.
Was May 1st Tuesday?
May 1st is Tuesday.
So Monday night, we're going to go get a bunch of gas cans, fill them with gas so you don't have to stop at a gas station.
But honestly, like it's not that big of a pull. No, it really is just it's a comfort thing.
It'll be good to break that psychological loop too.
Sure.
I think habitual stuff, it's just a psychological loop where like, even when you get like mental health issues and depression and stuff, sometimes when people talk to me about things, I just laugh in their face and they're like, what are you doing? And you're like, I just broke your concentration on one thing. Like could be good in that case.
To be honest, like not using substances, I am a firm believer. I mean, if you have any sort of habitual pattern with alcohol or drugs, and I'm just saying glass of wine at night, it's just your jam. It's a beer when you get home. It's your jam. That's innocuous. It's fairly harmless.
Right.
But breaking that cycle And resetting the brain takes a lot more work than you think it does, even if it's an innocuous habit. But when your brain resets, it is crazy. Like, my relationship with alcohol today is I legitimately don't want it. Like, I don't. And, people who've had substance abuse issues, or people that don't understand substance abuse issues, will kind of look at it and be like, or people with substance abuse issues currently who are looking at someone who is like, I'm good. Like, I don't want beer. I don't want a scotch. I'm good.
Right.
They're like, well, you're full of shit. Like, I know you do. You hypocritical son of a bitch. Like, fuck you. And you're holier than thou. Like, I don't need a drink anymore.
You just say you're superior to me,
Did you find your higher power, bro? Like, no, it really is.
I found myself.
Yeah, it legitimately is. Like, you can brain reset.
Yeah.
It's all it is it's neural pathways. It is neuroreceptors. It is conditioning.
Was that Rogan's podcast with the doctor, or is that a different podcast I was listening to? They just talked about this.
About receptors.
Rewiring like your pattern.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I've kind of just always been sort of abreast on what that's like.
I just listened to someone talking on some platform.
He was talking about acetylcholine.
Yeah, no, it was a different podcast for sure, where they were
talking
talking about the exact thing we're talking about right now, of like the reset of the brain and how it's possible.
Yeah.
But like you said, and I think they just said it in a super scientific way, which was like, what the hell? But like, it takes a shit ton of work to do it. But on the flip side, just like anything else, like going into your fear, facing your fears, stuff like that, the reward is that you are fucking flying high.
Well,
no pun intended.
Right? I mean, the science is fairly simple, right? If the thing that you're ingesting gives you the biggest dopamine hit, I don't care if that's ice cream, I don't care if that's tobacco, weed, heroin, alcohol, if that gives you a dopamine spike that is higher than any other thing you do, nothing is going to be as important or as beneficial, quote unquote, or good for you, or something that you're going to do.
It's the only thing you're going to reach for ever.
It really is, for anything, for coping, celebration, love, fear, anything. And if you just allow for that to subside and your brain to take a fucking rest from that, then there's going to be new things you're going to interject that are going to give you those normal dopamine spikes.
God, dude, you just said it too. Like love, like relationship stuff. That's probably one of the innate reasons that we tell people, like, maybe you should just chill out for a couple months.
Yeah, right.
Maybe you should be alone, like, to find yourself. Like, no. You just brought it up. I'm now having these thought process of like, maybe you just need to rewire some things so that that's not the only thing you can think about.
Yeah, well, it's
like, I've gone through that,
and you could do it with,
and I feel fucking great.
Yeah, so the only thing that can possibly happen from Sober May, by the way, if anyone wants to do Sober May with us,
hit us up.
Yeah, and just let us know how you're doing. And then I know that probably the first 2 weeks, I'm gonna have mental cravings, psychological cravings for nicotine. But after that, I know what it's like to just not use it anymore. I know what that feels like. But now I don't have anything else going with it. Like, there's no way I'm going to feel bad.
Right.
Like, that's what's so dumb. Like,
I know.
There's no way. Like, we're the stupidest creatures on planet Earth sometimes, because there's no way that I'm not going to feel good. Like, do you think that after like 2 weeks of cravings are gone, that I'm just going to be like, God, I feel like shit.
Right.
Like, definitely need to put that poison back into my body to feel optimal.
That runs so parallel with like the discipline equals freedom, right? Like habit equals discipline equals freedom. Like, we think that being disciplined is going to like ruin our lives and we're going to have no time for anything. But the second that you actually follow through on your discipline and you create new habits, all of a sudden you're like, we talked about this, where we're like, yeah, wow, I have the entire weekend open. What do you guys want to do?
Yeah.
Because I've gotten everything done now.
Exactly.
Pretty crazy.
So this is Sober May is my challenge plus change equals growth.
Right.
For
anybody that's at home, it doesn't have to be Sober May. It doesn't have to be alcohol, nicotine, drugs.
Something.
It could be food. It could be an activity you're sick of doing that you just haven't had a reason to give up.
Or adding an activity.
Right,
like going to the gym.
It's kind of, So I challenge everybody at home, whoever's listening, or, we'll post this on YouTube and we'll post it on Instagram too, but find something and see what we can challenge and change and grow.
So that's, challenge and change and grow. And maybe it's like Sober May / Change May.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So,
I like that.
Sober Change May, and as we're like changing it, as we call it Sober May the entire. But I think
the world is ever changing. Right?
I think it's springtime. Like things starting to everyone's gonna get outside. We're dusting off the winter, and it's just like let's
Cleanse.
change. Spring is change, and let's just get after it. So
What a great time of year to do it too.
Yeah,
everybody
perfect.
feels good.
Just you're feeling
Everybody's
great.
Fucking pumped about weather.
You're getting more vitamin D from the sun. It's a perfect time to do it. So we're gonna rock it out, and I'm happy that you're on board. Everyone's on
For
board.
sure, dude.
And,
it'll be fun. It'll be good to just support each other.
Yeah,
and
it will
it's cool. Like I like the change in there too because everybody's got a mission.
Yeah.
Through the month of May here, and see what they can. I mean, like 1 month, 30 days, man.
Yeah.
30 days is a microcosm of your life.
Is it 31 days?
30, whatever. I don't know.
No, it's like
I don't know.
it's like a 30s.
Somehow the entire world has agreed on time and a calendar, but
it's
nothing
not-
else. I don't get it.
It's not 28.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
So okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well-
but definitely let us know what you're doing. Find us on Instagram at Life Well Done. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe. Share it with your friends. Obviously, you're listening to us here, but make sure you review, rate us, share with your friends there too. And there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up.
Yes.
There's a lot of things put in motion. I think we're gonna have some new people on, which I think we're really excited about.
Yeah.
And just trying some new things.
Cool.
Cool. All right, dude. Well, good luck to everybody. Keep in touch with us,
Boom.
and we will be back soon.